Hey guys, Lytane here, and when I was a kid my parents would show me horror films, which is fantastic parenting because that would make me have nightmares and then my sister would torment me and all that kinds of stuff. But I did grow an appreciation for horror and I love the genre in general. So when a movie came out that is making fun of slasher flicks and most importantly Friday the 13th, I thought, that seems fun, I'm gonna check it out. So today I'm gonna see if The Final Girls are worth it. The Final Girls was released in 2015 and it starts with a trailer for the movie within a movie. Camp Bloodbath is an obvious homage to Friday the 13th with a camp full of counselors that get killed by a mysterious person in a mask with a machete. One of the counselors is Nancy, played by Malin Akerman, who is also in Watchmen. She is a struggling actor and can't get a new job because everyone just remembers her from her Camp Bloodbath part. Her daughter, Max, played by Taissa Farmiga, I'm pretty sure I've got that wrong, who is in a few seasons of American Horror Story, which I reviewed the first season of, so you should definitely check that out as well. They are driving to get some dinner when they are in a horrific car accident. Max survives, but Nancy does not. Cut to 3 years later and Max is living with her cousin and it's all sad, which is understandable really, and she gets forced to a special screening of Camp Bloodbath. It's a cult hit with lots of people loving it, just like The Room, which is a movie that I'll have to look at one day. A fire starts in the theater and some of the kids, including Max, escape by cutting through the projection screen. But it gets a little strange as they wake up in a field, one that looks eerily familiar. A car then drives past with some of the actors in the movie, and if it isn't obvious, they have been sucked into the movie. What's more is that Max is taken aback as her mother is there in the movie. She doesn't have any memories or anything and she has no idea Max is her daughter, but that won't stop Max from trying to do something in order to save her. How are they going to get out of this movie? If Nancy is destined to die in the movie, can they change things? And it doesn't look good for our men because the movie is called The Final Girls. The first thing I have to mention is that this is a comedy horror film with a PG-13 rating, which means that all of the horror, most of the scares, and pretty much all of the gore are gone from this movie. That means that the creators had to be that little bit more creative in order to get their ideas across, but in many ways it also falls kind of flat. As this is a homage to 80s slasher films and more importantly to make fun of them, I think that a higher rating could have pushed this movie to be that little bit more. It could have been that little bit more edgy. It could have made those jokes a little bit darker or a little bit more fun and pushed the envelope that little bit more. Maybe even making some of the gore jokes or something like that, I don't know. But this PG-13 rating really just holds it back from being something that it just could have been. They do, however, make a lot of fun about the bad acting in horror movies, especially from ones of this time. There are so many bad lines and sexual innuendo that it can be a little bit too much at times. Honestly, with how much they display sex in this film, I'm surprised it still got the PG-13 rating because there is literally a striptease in the film and I'm like, is that really for PG-13? I don't know, you could be the judge of that, but I thought, well, if they were going to have that in there, maybe they could have had a little bit more gore, but whatever. All of this sexual tension is capped off by Kurt, played by Adam Devine, who is the best and worst actor in this entire film. He is so over the top, being a jock douche that just wants to have sex with every female in the movie. He is quite annoying, but that is the point, and some of his lines are absolutely hilarious. Apparently, a lot of the lines that he had were improvised, and there are many takes. Some of them are in the outtakes at the end of the film, which was so funny to watch. But how do the other characters hold up? Max is fine. She's a damaged teenager and she goes through all of the motions and you can understand where she's coming from, what she's going to, and everything like that. She is fine. And then you have everybody else. Everyone is just sort of a generic stereotype, and the people from the movie within a movie, those characters are very one-dimensional. They don't have much depth to them at all. Maybe Nancy, because she is supposed to be the mother, has a little bit more character development than any other, and then you have the people from the real world. They actually have more personality and more spunk to them, which is to be understood because they're from the real world. And I like that the fact that these characters have a little bit more to them. They're not just like these ditzy people. I also like how the writing is reflects it as well, where the movie within a movie characters are badly written. They have a lot of silly lines, they have a lot of bad lines, and then the people from the real world, they have a lot more realistic kind of talk and realistic lines, and even the thought process of like how to get through this movie. It's quite funny to see the juxtaposition between these two sets of characters. One of the characters that I thought that stood out and made me laugh quite a lot was Tina. She is a sex object in this film, where the Adam Devine's character is the male version, she is the female version, and everything she does has to do with sex. The very first scene that you see her in when they're in the movie, she's grinding on one of the main characters for no real reason, and it made me laugh. And they know that an over-sexualized character is exactly the worst thing to have in this kinds of movie, because the bad guy is summoned by sex, because you know that's how 80s slasher films worked. If you have sex in an 80s slasher film, you're gonna die. If you're a virgin, you have a better chance of living. So they know that an over-sexualized body is going to summon the bad guy, so then they overly clothe her. They put a jumper onto her, they put a life preserver on her, they put mittens on her and like tape it up just so she has no way of accidentally being too sexy and summoning the bad guy. It's really silly and a fun meta joke, and one that I really appreciated. There are a lot of jokes about slasher films in this movie, and I'm a fan of slashers, so they made me smile and laugh often. One of them is when we're learning about the backstory of our villain, they get put into a flashback and our heroes get pulled along into it. They make a joke about being colorblind because it's all in black and white, and then we see the words pop up saying summer 1957, and that is just like a movie theme. The words pop up because they're there, but in this world the words are literally there and they have to step over them or else they'll trip. Later, when they're running away from the killer, they force Nancy to start the flashback story again in order to escape. It's so silly, but it's so fun. But what is a slasher film if not for its main villain? Here we have Billy, who is so clearly based on Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th. It is a summer camp, the boys bully him, and then one of them throws some fireworks into a dunny that he was in and burns his face, and then he becomes so angry that he murders everyone there, and then he goes hides out in the woods. Not quite the same as Jason, but similar enough. And for the most part, he was just sort of around. He's supposed to be the big bad, and a lot of the jokes are made at his expense, but he doesn't really do much. He is not menacing. He doesn't have this big overstanding looming thing. You don't feel threatened when you see him, and that might be due to this PG-13 rating. Where I enjoyed most of the characters in the film, I thought Billy just didn't have enough going for him. When I think back to some of the other slashers like Halloween or Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th, any time that or something of that nature comes up, you get scared, you get nervous because you know the killer's about and that he's going to kill somebody on screen, or maybe he's just going to do something creepy. I don't know, you don't know, because it's all suspenseful. Anytime you see him on screen, however, when you see Billy, it's not suspenseful. You know that nothing much is going to happen, and it's not going to be creative either in most of his kills because of that PG-13. Most of the kills are just stabbed from behind, and then they go like, and you hear the sound effect like, and that's about it. Like, I could do that right now. It's not good enough. I think that's what the problem is with this movie. They had a lot of good ideas, but they couldn't take them any further due to that PG-13 rating. Like at one point they try to take him out by booby-trapping the house in order to stun him long enough to get his machete to kill him. It's fun and a creative scene with so many characters and they're having a blast and it's great. And a lot of people die here and only one of those deaths was fun. One was a bit of a surprise and the rest were just boring, and it's not a good way for them to go. I could have also liked a little bit less time of the build up in the movie. I get that they had to set up the real world and the main characters, but it drags on and I just want the fun to start. Also, what kind of movie theater lets you drink alcohol or, more importantly, smoke? How is that okay? I would complain like no tomorrow if I was in a movie theater and somebody just lit up in front of me. And then the theater getting set on fire was pretty dumb, it looked cheap, and it just took too long. Then we have the ending, which I'm not going to spoil here, but I generally liked it. It's what I thought was going to happen, but it did feel a little strange. Apparently they had 2 endings and they both failed with test audiences, and this is a bit of a mash of both of them, and I agree that it's not the best, but it does serve in a fun way, and at least it ends the movie. I had plenty more questions at the end of this movie, but it's the kind of film that you just don't ask questions about. It was meant to be dumb and have plot holes and be silly, so I accept it as face value, except for smoking in a theater. Who allows that? That's just dumb. In my opinion, I think that The Final Girls was worth it if you're into slashers. If you are not into slashers, then I don't recommend this film, but if you grew up watching Friday the 13th or, you know, A Nightmare on Elm Street or Halloween, then there is a lot here that you probably will enjoy. They make a lot of jokes about the genre and a lot of things related to the genre that I just really liked, and I think if you enjoyed those kinds of movies, then this movie will tickle that. There isn't a lot of gore, and that does let the movie down, and it does have some things that it just could have gone that little bit further with in order to be just that little bit better, but honestly, for what it is, I quite enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun watching it. I still don't think Billy was any good, and like I said, that PG-13 really hampers it, but it was fine enough. So go and check it out if you like slashers. If you don't, give it a miss. So guys, tell me what you thought about The Final Girls. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Did you think it was any good? Did you even know about it? I don't think many people saw this film, to be honest. I thought it was very creative, and a lot of things that it did, and how it was making fun of slashers and 80s films. I had a blast watching it because that's what kind of stuff I'm into. But what did you guys think? Also, what's one of your favorite slasher films? If you tell me yours, I'll tell you mine. And guys, don't forget to cycle and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye! Mine is a tie between the Nightmare on Elm Street Part 1 and A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3. Screw number 2, that should go eat a dick. But, well, that was a quick review right there. Shouldn't say that one because one day I'll want to review it.